Sons of prostitutes, how do you feel about what your mother did? So I'm not 1000% sure. I was pretty young, but I do have some memories that stand out to me as I got older. The main two being I never had a permanent father figure, and one night I woke up to loud arguing with whom I now know was a pimp, and it got physical to the point where he brought in extra people and tattooed my mom with P.O.S. A friend has a mom who is a meth head and prostitute. From his descriptions, she's in rough shape. Homelessness. Ill health. $10 blowjobs in Alice. He is married and stable. He goes out 2-3 nights a week looking for her. When he finds her, he gives her money, gets her to eat. Tries to get her off the street. Many times she doesn't recognize him. I asked him why. It's futile AF. And he knows it. He said, "It's my mom. As long as she and I are alive, I can't stop trying." Mum was a PRN star in the 70s 80s. Did stuff with Ron Jeremy and the like. It was always a very taboo thing growing up. But my dad tried to prepare us for bullies at school due to the town being fully aware of what she did. No bullies. I grew up with a guy whose mother was a prostitute. It did not end well. He was abused by multiple men. She was a severe drug addict. Last I knew, my friend was in prison. The mom has long since been dead from an overdose. Mine didn't walk the streets, but she slept with men when we needed money or food. She hid it pretty well. We always thought these men were being nice and just giving us money. Now that I look back on it, it all makes sense. She passed 10 years ago and I am thankful to her for it. My aunt was a prostitute and she killed her son as well as her 2 daughters. So I'll speak for them. The oldest daughter was a little older than me and she hated her life with her mom. My family and our grandmother stepped in to help raise them, and we all wish we adopted them before the tragedy. This isn't an anti-S work viewpoint. It's just my family's story. My aunt had a lot wrong with her. Bastard son of a Thai prostitute here. No idea who my real dad was. But luckily one of my mum's clients fell in love with her. Married her and adopted me. When things went bad, he got custody of me and got me the duck out of there. He was a terrible dad over the years, but I'm forever grateful for the fact I'm where I am now cause of him. I'm now a dad myself and making sure I don't make any of the same mistakes. Edit. Adding here, since it's been mentioned I didn't actually answer the question. I don't see anything wrong with it. My problems with my parents come from them as people and not my mother's profession. Didn't think I'd ever see the day where other people would be talking about this. I am a son of a prostitute and I've literally seen it all growing up. I can remember being left in a trap house and my mom telling me she'd be back in a few hours. Little did I know she wouldn't be coming back for a few days. I can vividly remember eating stuffed Oreos for days and hating them. For some odd reason I had strong mother-son bond with her, although she put me through the most difficult times. And it never really went out. I haven't seen her in about 10 years now. Through various prison movements and coronavirus, she is seemingly unfindable. Out of all the crazy shit I seen because of her, I still feel sorry for her and love her just like I did was little. I truly don't hold any resentment for her actions anymore. I forgive her. Though she put me through a lot, I wouldn't wish any negative energy upon her. Yeah, not my mum, but I do have a story. In my high school, everyone found out one of the girls' mums had been in a PRNO movie. Nothing really happened until one of the boys got said tape and decided to throw it on during a school presentation. The girl basically ran off crying during the assembly and transferred to another school quite far away. It's a shame because she was real nice. I heard later on the same thing happened and she went into private tuition. The whole ordeal followed her like a curse. That guy's a DCK. And he had balls to do it. Brains to think about doing it. But no heart to feel about it. I'm a daughter of one, but anyways, sorry if this is messy. Mum still is one and has been her my whole life. I'm still kinda young. 18. So I don't think grasp it very well, but it's embarrassing and I hate that I look so much like her. Even though I cut ties with her, I've run into older men that recognize me because of my mom. Mine was one in the past before I was born. She never hidden the fact she was one when I was old enough to understand what prostitution was. Doesn't change a thing for me. She's still my mom who sacrificed everything to keep me well fed. Still love her with all my heart. In my town, a kid was expelled from a school because his mother was a prostitute. I never knew who my biological father was, nor did I care. Think I was 16 or so when I solved the mystery. She was always gone at night on the weekends and wouldn't return till morning. Always had provocative clothing. Even had one of my younger brothers take nude photographs of her so she could give to her Johns. One weekend when the house was empty except for me, she told me to stay upstairs. She proceeded to have a gangbang downstairs. I feel like she did what had to do to take care of her 2 boys as a single mother. I don't even feel shameful about it. I still love and adore her memory. I am thankful she was willing to sacrifice her body so we could have clothes and food. All things considered, she was an amazing woman who taught me about the world and definitely shaped my personality. Can't believe I just openly posted about this. But duck it. I love her and I'm not ashamed. My mom was not a prostitute but a stripper. She had a terrible taste in men, left us at home all day, and she was a druggie. Made from Korean War. Mom was traded off at 5 years old to pay a gambling debt to a bar. After turning 13, she was old enough to work front of bar instead of cleaning and cooking. Had me when she was 15. Father was an American helicopter pilot that took her from bar and stationed her on base with a job in cafe. War ended. Life changed. Mother is a rock. Worst insult I ever heard. Your WH mom doesn't even give you a discount. Led to a fist fight. Not my mother but my grandma. She struggled pretty hard in her days and thankfully my mother and aunt didn't feel ashamed or upset because of it. A significant part of her family practically disowned her though. Now this makes me ducking mad because no one was there to help but to judge. After all of that, my grandmother and mom managed to build a very good life and gave me a lot of opportunities. And to this day I say duck you to that part of the family who just made my grandma's life harder. Edit. Damn. More than 1k upvotes and thanks for the awards. It is very good to read what you all have to say too. I found out my mom did work for about a week when I was 10. Edit to clarify that I was 10 when this happened. Not when I found out, lol. She's a very large woman. 6 feet 3 and 220 pounds. I guess my dad's boss was about to retire and was really into that specific type of woman, and to celebrate, paid my mom $4.500 over the course of a week to basically manhandle him and peg him. He gave my dad $2.500 as hush money because that being leaked to the community could have ruined him. Even though he was retiring. Quite a bit of money for us at the time. Almost life changing. We got a newish used car. Paid off old rent debt. Went to the water park and both my siblings and I got a ton of new school clothes. I feel no shame in it. Especially since my parents agreed as a married couple and as adults to do it. Son of an American prostitute here. I feel like I was born out of her failures. If she were to have taken a different, more healthy path in life, I wouldn't exist. I was born from mistakes. And that can do a number on your psyche. I have a few siblings. Most of them I barely know. None of us have the same father. It hurts. Because I care about my mother. I don't know how. Or why I care. She always disappoints. One day she's quitting drugs and the next she's sucking guys off for some heroin. I've come to the conclusion that family is what you make it. That there are no such things as mistakes, just things that happen. I exist now. And that is fine. Family is far from somebody biologically related to you. Family is someone who you're connected to no matter the circumstances. If you can't love your biological family, then they're not family. When someone says I ducked your mom, I reply, yeah. I know, dipshitty. You put me through college. I didn't realize till I got into my teens. My father left us when I was like 3 and my brother 6. We were in the best schools, we had the newest Nintendo consoles and stuff and had a good life, but my mother was never around or we never had much family time and we had people taking care of us. Babysitters. I used to hate my mom for never being there with us or share family time, but nowadays I understand why. I had everything. Roof. AC. Food. The popular toys and video games. Sometimes I cry because of how confused I was back in the day, and today now everything makes sense. She didn't graduate school. She didn't had experience on any area. She did it for us. Today she's a bit old now. My brother is helping her economically and taking care of her. She's dating someone too, and I can see in her eyes that she's finally living the life she always wanted. We never talk about it. No one has mentioned even this conversation. I'm grateful for having her in my life. It's fine because she doesn't do it anymore and we have a really happy life. Not me. But a close friend was the son of a prostitute and one of her Johns. She gave him up and he was raised by 2 loving foster parents. He's got a family and business of his own now and is downright one of the happiest, most well-adjusted people I know. At some point he found a picture of his birth mother. And, realizing he didn't resemble her, decided he must look like his father. At that point he looked at himself in the mirror and just said, "Damn dude. You didn't have to pay for it." I don't. Really. Though I'm also adopted. I'm sure it's different for people who actually lived with them. But my biological mother is a stranger to me entirely by choice, because when I'd fly out to visit her as a kid she'd usually be in jail or otherwise unavailable. And when she was around to speak to me, it was how she was so proud of what a young man I was becoming and how I should become a police officer and move out of her area because that'd be oh so convenient for everyone involved. Let me tell you. My actual parents have never tried to lead me on for some ulterior motive. And that's about it for what I need to decide who's really my family. I didn't really know I was the son of a prostitute until I won a few games of Call of Duty. Learned a lot about my mom then. Not a prostitute, but she was a PRN star. For the most part I can kind of accept that it was what it was and that it's always gonna be this weird fact about her. I did resent her for it when I was younger, as a lot of the kids in school would often berate me for it. But these days I've kind of made my peace with it. She doesn't do it anymore. Anything she did in the past is absolutely none of my business. I'm not one to judge. It is what it is. I still love my mom regardless. That's the spirit. Having a loving parent is the best. Hard to say. I think being adopted was probably the best bet personally. My mom died at crack WHRA and I never tried to reconnect with family. Moving on with your life instead of trying to get answers to things past is what I feel is best. I'll never know her reasons and I'm okay with that. She ended up a defense attorney. When she did what she did. It was before me. And before the age of video everywhere. The only way I know is her sisters tell me not to tell her. You can have a bumpy journey and end up at a better place. So I'm indifferent and I forget that they told me. But every few years one of them will bring it up. "Oh, your aunts are kinda bitches. It sounds like your mom made something of herself, so there is no need to tell you." I was born, so I'm okay with it. I was also once born and I'm not okay with it. I'm just disappointed she slept with all the people on Xbox Live who play better than me. Seems to me that a lot of the horror stories on this post aren't due to sex work, but to drug abuse. I was adopted at birth. Birth mother was homeless and pretty lost in booze and hard drugs. I generally assume I'm the product of a business exchange. On one hand I wish she and the sperm donor had used contraceptives or that she'd had an abortion. I don't feel like the family I grew up with is really my family. Beyond the mother who actually raised me. It feels like I'm not even supposed to be here. I feel like she was just doing what she felt she had to do to get a fix or whatever. I can't shitty on her for getting by like that. Probably didn't feel so good making money getting drugs like that. I really don't know how to feel besides kinda wishing she'd been smart enough to use some sort of contraceptives. Same with the dude who put me into this world. Pull out. Wear a condom. Pay for plan B. Or pay half an abortion cost ya ducking tool. TL. DR indifferent to how birth mother got by. Mostly just upset about the lack of birth control contraceptives involved. My boyfriend's mom had a sugar daddy and never worked. He was constantly moved between states to wherever the sugar daddy was staying and never got to have a group of friends from moving so much. His mom kept having more kids to get more money out of the sugar daddy and would leave my boyfriend to care for all his siblings. Now he's struggling to get financial for college since he can't provide and tax information for either parent. He's 22 and still pretty messed up from the whole thing. Looking through the comments. The real issue isn't that they were prostitutes. It was because they became addicted or they were abusive. My mom did whatever it took to feed me and my brother. I did care and was ashamed about it, but now when I'm fully grown I thank her for her sacrifice for us. Women are the strongest beings in the world, I swear. The streets are extended gutters and the gutters are full of blood, and when the drains finally scab over, all the vermin will drown. The accumulated filth of all their sex and murder will foam up about their waists, and all the WH resident politicians will look up and shout save us. Us, and I'll look down and whisper no. Lot of toys. So can't complain. What kind of toys? When my child was quite young I turned tricks. I did what I had to. I was charging $300 an hour, granted. So a full day's of work was more than rent. But I was also emotionally distant at the time due to a lot of pain. Not all the work was consensual and I was severely abused by my pimps. I drank to cope with the pain I was carrying from lifelong abuse. One day she might know what happened and the sacrifices I made to support her. I struggle with sex to this day. And I'm incredibly lonely as a result. My ex gets into a new serious relationship every 2 years while I'm always her single dad. If I had to go back and weigh out a life devoid of intimacy because I can't find someone gentle enough to love me, or losing her due to poverty, I would always choose a life with her. I know that she will love me no matter what she knows. In the end, she is one of the few people I have ever met who has loved me sincerely and without ulterior motives. She did it to feed her heroin habit. She brought me along on at last one of her encounters when I was a child. I will never forgive her. People on here be like, while I am not a son, and while my mother was not a prostitute. Why sons specifically? Asking for sons' opinions instead of just her blanket children seems like fishing for a specific kind of response to me. If she had been more emotionally stable and less of a drug addict, it may have been alright. Anytime there were hard times when my brother and I were younger, she would blame us and scream and throw things and be most hateful. Saying it's your fault I have to lay on my back for strangers. Another of my favorites, if I didn't have to feed you too then I would have this life. These are just a few of the things that would pass through her lips. Like the DCKS of 1000 men, it left her inside stinky and ruined. There were some times when she would bring work home and we had to hear the activity and whatever talking they did to one another. In the end it was upsetting, and I think that it certainly has painted a much more cavalier feeling about sex for myself. For a long time she almost was clinical. I felt less emotion when I lost the Olavy card than I do now when doing the slap and tickle. Overall I ducking hated it. It caused a decade-long silence between us after I confronted her, and she was mostly unapologetic. Not a son but a daughter. My mom didn't hang out on the corner, but she would bring guys home for money to pay the bills. I was unaware of it until I had heard things from friends' parents and people who knew her. Word gets around. I figured everything out when I was about 14. Nothing too harsh happened to me. But I do remember being extremely embarrassed when I brought a boyfriend or friend home and she was with a client. At 16 I brought home a boyfriend. The second guy I ever seriously dated enough to bring home. And she was working. She had music in her room real loud, but you could still hear it. I was very upset. And that was the first time I opened up to anybody about it. I'm still with that man today at 20 years old. I think my mom suffers the trauma from it a lot more than me and my siblings did. She was recently diagnosed with BPD. She married a horrible guy and she always seems to be a mess. I love her nonetheless. Can't invite my father to my wedding without Ray creating the Mamma Mia plot. Next prompt. Kids of stockbrokers in pre-2008. How do you feel about what your parents did? Sons of stockbrokers. Son of the bitches of Reddit. No offense, just kidding. Lol, why sons specifically? My mother was a 15-year-old French prostitute named Chloe, registered sign with webbed feet. My father would womanize. He would drink. He would make outrageous claims like he invented the question mark. Sometimes he would accuse chestnuts of being lazy. The sort of general malaise that only the genius possess and the insane lament. Granddaughter here? Odd perspective. But hear me out. Found out from a very young age that my mother was raised by my great-grandmother because my grandmother, this isn't relevant. But the signifying feature I had of her as a kid were her size H tits, was a prostitute. For me, I separate my grandmother from what she did years ago entirely. Because the sweet little woman I know who makes the best fudge in her tiny ass town could never do that. I almost don't believe it. Makes the best fudge in her tiny ass. Maybe you should reword this. Called my mom today after reading these. Hey mom. Thanks for not being a prostitute. What? WTF. Sons? Because daughters can't? Yeah, the whole question is problematic. Only asking sons because? Why do you assume that because I'm the son of a prostitute? It was my mother who was said prostitute? Asking this not to some feminist sarcastic side eye but earnestly wondering why does OP only want sons' opinions? I imagine whatever gender of child would have an interesting perspective on having a mother in sex work. Anything particular about a son's perspective you're looking for? Just find that interesting to only request one over the other. I keep seeing this kind of question. Option 1. They are fishing specifically for how it impacted the relationship the guy has towards women and sex. Not saying it couldn't also have an impact on daughters. But that isn't the information they're after. The lack of serious tag makes this option suspect. But still possible. Option 2. It's a setup for the inevitable follow-up thread about daughters of prostitutes and eventual sons daughters of John's threads. There is a lot of activity comments to your question, which helped increase the post activity, which leads to more visibility. Think of all that karma just waiting to be collected. Option 3. Op is non-native English speaker and sons is a stand-in, or the word, for children and the native language.